Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365. It's joint practice day, Johnny Mac. Eagles are heading to New England to take on the New England Patriots in joint practice today. How you doing on this Tuesday morning, John McMullen?
Doing well. Late scratch for Foxborough. So, I got a lot of mental illness. I hate missing things, but I'll get over it. At least I get to be here to talk with you guys about the lone joint practice of the summer.
What do you expect from the joint practice, Johnny Mac? I know you're not going to be there, and you're not. You're nursing back the calf strain, which we've talked about on the show. Hope that's going well for you, and the ice is working, Johnny Mac. But what do we expect from a practice like this? Do you expect any fights? Do you expect to learn something else when you reach out to your fellow beat reporters who are there? What will you be asking them?
Yeah, well, the fight part of it, it's always more of an opportunity to get a little chippiness. You remember last year when the Colts were here, Zaire Franklin and Jason Kelsey taking a 40-yard beeline towards them. So you can always get some excitement from that standpoint. But, it's the most important in the modern era practice for the starters and the key players as a whole. Because they're not going to get much action, probably zero action in the preseason game on Thursday nights, and not much action as a whole. Maybe if the weather was better in Baltimore, the offense might have gotten a series. Maybe not, but they didn't, and there's a good chance you're not going to see them until September 6th in Brazil. So from that standpoint, it's very important, and that's why I don't like the lone aspect of it. There's only one, not two. Always like it when there's two. But, you're at the mercy of other teams when you try to set these things up. But typically, in years past, the Colts were only in here for one day before the game. But, whether you go down to Miami, it's typically 2 days now. They ended up with a virus that cut off the second practice, but the Eagles were able to practice down there. Cleveland has been here. Baltimore's been here. New England's been here. All 2 days in recent seasons. That format's a little bit better. And then let's be honest, you'd rather have going against a better team. I mean, I'm going to be honest. This is not the New England Patriots of old. This is not the old standard, gold standard. This is a bottom 5 NFL team on paper. So, you prefer from a standpoint of getting tested a little bit more. And, I expect you're going to see some good reports and, temper those a little bit, especially defensively. I think you're going to get good reports, and there's not much New England has on offense other than Ramondre Stevenson's a pretty good back. Jacoby Brissett's the starting quarterback right now. Drake May, obviously, a top draft pick, but it's going to be a while before he's up to speed. They don't have great receivers. Offensive line is just sort of on paper, they look like a very less than explosive offense. And defensively, they're a little bit better. But, Matthew Judon's having a contract impasse there. By the way, we got to talk about Hassan Reddick.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that. Sure.
Matthew Judon's having – and for all the people that say, hey, the Eagles avoid all these things, you're always going to have contract issues with good players who outplay their contracts. But, you don't have to sit back and be reactive about it. What the Eagles are proactive about it. So they took a bunch of hits from moving on from Hassan Reddick for a third round pick, conditional third round pick in 2026. You know how he got a little bit, his back up a little bit when he got asked about that from someone that probably doesn't understand the landscape. And he could spike the football today. He knew what was coming. But nobody else knows what's coming. So you got to bite the bullet. And, he was proactive about it. And it's, you see the reasons why it was done pretty clearly now.
Yeah,
But
no doubt. Yeah.
getting back to New England, it's not the best test. So,
yeah, I think this comment here from our friend Daytime Frank John is true. He says this will benefit New England more than us. And I think to your point, they're a team that's not that great and they're not built to win yet. And they get to go up against a really a powerhouse roster, especially on offense for their defense. So it's a great test for them. And I think Daytime Frank is correct on that comment, John, that this will benefit New England more.
I think it helps the Eagles. I mean, but you'd rather be tested by a little bit more talent. They have a great secondary, for instance.
I mean, I would have loved the joint practice with the Ravens. Thought that would have been great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That would have been, and even then you'd probably look and say, all right, well, they got a bad backup quarterback situations, but ones versus ones would have been fun.
Yeah.
And you look for little things. The Patriots do have on paper a very good secondary. That's probably the strength of their team. So, maybe you can look at what Jalen still hasn't thrown an interception. So if you see some bad reports from that perspective, maybe that's not a positive because they got some guys who can play, and Christian Gonzalez and Jabril Peppers is there, and Kyle Duggar is there, Jonathan Jones even, but they have some guys who can play in the secondary. So, it's an NFL team. You have good players. I say it all the time. Even the worst teams have a bunch of good players. But overall, Cleveland came in last year, and the day one, that Cleveland really waxed them. If you get winning losing practice, they got waxed on day one, and a lot of it had to do with Myles Garrett. Couldn't block him. And you're not game planning. You're not going in saying, oh, we gotta chip Myles Garrett. If you go into a game, well, anybody who goes into a game against Cleveland, that's what they do, is say, all right, how are we going to block Myles Garrett? You're not just going to leave the left tackle alone, and the Eagles might be one that can get away with it better than most, but even they're going to help a little bit. Most teams are going to build their whole offensive game plan about trying to block Myles Garrett. You don't do that in practice. So he was able to blow up a session, and he tweaked something. He didn't practice day two, and the Eagles bounced back and had a good performance. So, and they were a pretty good team, playoff level team. And that's you prefer to have that kind of test.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Good breakdown. We'll get into a little bit of Hassan Reddick talk for sure. I want to welcome everybody in this morning. A good crowd in here already this morning. Crowley's in here. Twiz the Jigga, Jeff Martin, Paul Mancini. What's up, Paul? Hope you're doing well, brother. Wayne the Pain. I like that name, Wayne. I think you changed your name. Thanks for being a channel member, brother. James Carver, our friend James Carver, has made it in. Joe Whip, SMD Eagles, Kirsten Carter. Kirsten, nice to see you here. I don't know if I've ever seen your name in the chat, but we appreciate you being here. Quan Pugh, Mr. Perez, Abraham, everybody's in here. Johnny Mac. So good show planned for you guys. We have two good guests coming up on the show today. John just kind of previewed what's going on today for the Eagles in New England. We have Bill Colarulo, a star now, Johnny Mac, Bill Colarulo, who will join
I knew
us.
him, when I was a bigger star than Bill. No more. Yeah, Bill is a shooting star.
Bill is big time now with the full-time gig on 97.5. So we'll have Bill on in about 11 or 10 minutes here on Birds 365. And then we'll have Les Bowen, formerly covering the Birds on the beat, been around for a long time, one of our best guests. Always great to talk to Les Bowen. So we'll talk to him in hour number 2. So those are your 2 guests today. Johnny Mac, let's get into that Hassan Reddick while we have 9 minutes. We'll break down the joint practice, I'm sure, extensively as much as we can. What do you think of the Hassan Reddick? You know, there's people out there, and I know they're being facetious and joking, but Howie, go get him.
Well, yeah, now they're spiking the football.
I
Did they
know.
apologize to Howie? Because you were a bunch of you were all kind of very upset.
Well, we still have to see the guys on the field. I think that
well,
you know, I think that's
it's always about evaluation if Bryce Huff doesn't turn out. But you could see it pretty evident. You know, I've been talking about it for a long time. They're trying to thread a needle, get younger, more cost-effective, longer shelf life. You know, guy wanted $25 million. They weren't going to go to that level. It's a very difficult decision because of the way he's performed with the Eagles. But, you know, you got to make these tough decisions. That's why I said the Eagles don't want those hard knocks cameras around, because you saw the people react to Saquon Barkley, and they weren't even being mean to Saquon Barkley with the Giants.
Yeah.
You know, people were eavesdropping on those difficult conversations with Hassan Reddick, it wouldn't have come across positively. But that's just the nature of the NFL. You have to have those conversations. One of the things I noticed a lot of people saying, he did not request a trade, 2 trades in a couple months. He never requested a trade from the Eagles.
Right.
The Eagles knew what he wanted, knew what he was looking for, and they said, look, you know, we're probably not going to go to that level. And, you know, granted him permission to seek a trade elsewhere. And the same was true, by the way, of Josh Sweat. They granted Josh Sweat permission to seek a trade elsewhere. And was one of those things very similar to a couple years ago when they had 3 defensive backs and Bradbury, Slay, and Chauncey, and they were going to keep 2, and they had to figure it out. In this case, once they went all in on Bryce Huff, they were going to keep 1, and then it became sort of a race. Josh Sweat agreed to restructure his deal. Hassan was never coming off his demands, so that was it. And the decision was made. And, you know, from the Jets' perspective, Joe Douglas, I like a lot. Obviously, he was here from 2016-ish to 2019-ish, somewhere in that range. Good guy. You know, there's some conflicting stories coming out of New York of what he knew and what the Jets expected. But look, when you trade for a guy who's not happy with his contract, you better have something worked out before you make the deal. And they didn't. And that reflects badly on Joe Douglas. But I don't think it's
also on Hassan's agent, though.
Well, not from
really,
the standpoint of the Jets pulling the trigger, you know, because they were working on a deal with Hassan Reddick before they consummated the trade. They didn't
the agent
agree
can't
with
get
them.
a deal done, you know, or can't tell you when to make the trade. You know, they decide to do it. Right?
Exactly. So they were talking, and they weren't able to get a deal done, and the Jets made the trade anyway. So that part of it's on the Jets. But from the Eagles standpoint, like, you know, people talk about holdouts, and you don't see holdouts generally now, because this is crazy, because he's getting fined $50,000 a day, and you can't, under the current CBA, you can, in the old days, you just waive those fines. When you agree to a deal, guy would come in, waive the fines, and no harm, no foul. Now you can't. So this is all lost money for Hassan Reddick. And I suppose if you ultimately get the 25 million, you can chalk it up and say, well, I'm getting a hell of a lot more than 14 and a half, so it's worth it. But I don't think he's getting that, and I don't think he's helping himself, because nobody else wants this headache either. So as good as a player as he is, I don't think he's getting the best advice in the world.
No, I don't either. Yeah, I mean, if he turns around and gets 20 and 21, 22 million, I mean, You just lost $1 million in fine. I mean, you're already down to 20. It's definitely a tough hit. But
so now
say,
he's got it. And from the Eagles standpoint, because Jody and I used to talk about it, and all the back people can look at the archive shows, and I said, look, I mean, he's not playing here for $14.5 million. It's 14.25, somewhere in that range. And he produced for the Eagles. The NFC Championship year, I mean, he wrecked the NFC Championship game. He was 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. One of the best individual defensive seasons in franchise history. So he did that for the Philadelphia Eagles. And he thought that they should have, at least tweaked his contract, and it was going to be ugly. And the Eagles were proactive about it. And now
I know that the Eagles didn't want to go much higher, but when you look at like what Bryce Huff is making and what he's done, I know that obviously the NFL puts a massive emphasis on age, but sheesh, Hassan Reddick does deserve more than $14 million. He was
there was no doubt. If they were bringing him back, it would have to been you would have had to do the Band-Aid contract, which is basically, all right, he's on the final year of his original deal. All the guaranteed money is up. So generally what you do at that point is you guarantee the 14.25 plus you tack on an extra year and give him a bunch of new money. And that's where the Eagles were trying to work in. That's the realm they were trying to work in. But he wanted 25. He wanted to be near, and maybe more. He wanted to be near the top edge rushers. And from his perspective, I get it. He's been one of the top edge rushers. But then the age comes into it. He's going to be 30 in September. And the biggest part, I'm told, from the Eagles is they rode him hard, man. He played a lot of snaps for 2 consecutive seasons. If you go back, he played a lot of snaps in Carolina, and he played a lot of snaps his last year in Arizona. So that's one of those difficult decisions in football. It's like, you're not paying a guy for what he did. You're paying a guy for what you want him to do in the future. That's the goal. And they made a decision. And the old adage is better to give up on a player a year early than a year late.
Yeah, no doubt.
And hindsight is looking good for Howie.
Yeah, I'm with Eduardo here. Says I would have given him 21. I always said at 20 million, I like it. At 25, I think it's a stretch because Howie would have been able to get an out of the deal and not lock in on a 30-year-old guy for too long. But anyway, we'll see what happens with Hassan Reddick. We got
they're not trading to bring Hassan Reddick back. They're not.
No, they're not. There are
people 25 million. That's why he's not here.
There are people in the chat asking you, Johnny Mac, will we bring back Hassan Reddick? I do not believe that will happen, everybody. But what will happen today is Bill Colarulo will join us. I see our man, Big Bill, in the green room. And by the way, he's not Big. I don't think he can be Big Bill anymore. He has to be like Huge Bill or
Superstar Billy.
Superstar Bill is a good one. I don't know. We got to come up with something bigger than Big Bill.
Superstar Billy Colarulo.
Yes, I like that. We'll call him that.
I'm an old school wrestling guy. Superstar Billy Graham. Superstar Billy Colarulo.
I love it, Johnny Mac. So let's get to our first commercial break. Coming up next, everybody, Superstar Billy Colarulo will join us here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow, to get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away. Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365. Joined now by Bill Colarulo, the new midday host over on 97.5 The Fanatic. Bill, congratulations on your new gig, man. We appreciate you being here with us on Birds 365. You are killing it, my friend. Good to have you on.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be here. Just trying to be like my man, John McMullen. I figured, you know what? Man. I got to look like the best in the biz. So
yeah,
took it down.
Yeah, my Z-level celebrity, local celebrity, you have greatly surpassed already. So you're a shooting star. Congratulations, Bill. Middays 97.5. I saw Mike Missinelli took a 2-year vacation. You guys got plenty of reps together, so you guys should hit the ground running. From the JAKIB post game show, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, it helped watching every
again.
game with him here on JAKIB down at the Ocean. So that was nice.
Yeah,
but no, it's been good. It's been exciting. We had our first show yesterday. Second one kicks off today, and I heard you looking for a nickname. It's funny because you said Superstar Billy Graham. Yeah. When I was young, like most kids, when I was young, I was into the WWE a lot, and I wanted to be a WWF wrestler. And my dad nicknamed me the Superstar Billy Vegas. That's what.
Nice. There we go.
Based off of the Superstar Billy Graham.
By the way, I don't know if DeCecco told you another thing. Now that you shaved your head, not the same, but there is a security guard at the NovaCare complex that could be your brother.
Really?
And except you're the nicest guy in the world. This guy is not. So it's like your evil brother. He's the classic mall cop. He thinks he's got a little bit more stroke than he.
Well, I used to work down there. I used to work with Big Dom.
Yeah, Big Dom. Yeah.
So
I heard that. I didn't know that. DeCecco told me that.
Yeah, for
Big Dom knows everybody, man.
Probably about 7 or 8 years with him, and you remember Butch?
Yeah, Butch
was
the Eagles. I was not there when Butch was there, but I've heard many stories about Butch. And even more stories about Dom, but they will stay off the record.
If Big Dom ever decided to write a book, it would be a #1 seller, but he would never even think about it. That's what makes Big Dom Big Dom.
Exactly. And the legend grows there. So both of you, the legend grows. Superstar Billy Vegas, Billy Colarulo.
Yeah. So real quick, people are asking about this shaved head. Here's the beauty of YouTube. Nobody could see the back of my head. Like, Zander, I've seen you in person. I had a bald spot on the back of my head. I just took control before Father Time could, and I shaved it off. And people were like, what happened? you couldn't see the back of my head. You only saw from the front. It looked like I had those luscious locks. So I decided I was done with the bald spot, man.
I mean, long ago, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to try to hide things. Like I still have hair today if I sit there, but you know, I'm not going to.
I'm years back from you guys, and I'm almost ready to make the same decision as I watch in the mirror, and my hair is going and going and going, and I'm like, I'm almost ready to just take it. Just take it. I don't want to deal with it.
It's liberating, man. It's liberating.
It is liberating.
Well, Bill, you look pretty nice with it. I got to say, not everybody looks good with it. Johnny Mack looks great with it. You gotta
have the right side. You gotta have the right shaped head.
You gotta have a good shaped head. Yeah. I used to shave my head when I was a big meathead in college playing football. I used to shave it anyway, so I knew.
You knew what you were.
You knew it wasn't going to be bad when you shaved it off. You knew you had the proper shaped head. That's a big positive because it's dangerous the first time you do it.
Intimidate Missing Elliott a little bit, man. I had to come into the studio. You know we're going to be battling, so I was like, you know what? I got to do something to get him off his game a little bit.
Yeah, don't let Mike bully you either. You know, just go back at him. That's the good radio. So, and say hi to Mike for me.
I heard you talking about Hassan Reddick's situation.
Yeah, boy.
I just don't understand, John. You've been covering the NFL for a while. How the New York Jets could make a trade not having a contract already worked out. Once the Eagles gave Hassan Reddick freedom to go seek a trade, his agent's able to talk to other teams and say, hey, look, this is what we're looking for. It's the same thing. Look what the Giants did with Brian Burns. They knew what they were getting as far as a contract before they made the trade. When the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown on the night of the draft a couple years ago, they immediately agreed to a new contract. The fact that the Jets would trade a third-round draft pick, not knowing if you could get this guy under a contract, is ridiculous. Like, if they wanted to send a 6th or 7th rounder and take a flyer on the guy, I don't understand how you trade a third-round pick when you don't have a deal already worked out. To me, that is horrible on Joe Douglas' part.
No, I agree, and I like Joe a lot, but yeah, that's you know, that there's some back and forth. They say that Reddick agreed to come in and they would negotiate, and you know, obviously Reddick's camp says that's not the case. Bottom line is, though, you're right, Bill. From the organization's perspective, from the Jets' perspective, if you don't have concrete, you know, something, whether it's a waiver or I'll come in this, I'll sign this, you know, you got to have something on paper. And that's a mistake. And that's why the Jets are the Jets. And, you know, everybody's singing Howie's praises. I know you're on the air all the time. There are a lot of people that weren't singing Howie's praises. They should give him the apology first.
Look, I'm one of them. I did not like the move getting rid of Reddick. I thought you were giving up on your best defensive player of the last 2 seasons, a guy who still was playing at a high level. And there's still a lot of question marks on the edge for this Eagles team. But clearly he made it clear to the Eagles he was not going to play under his current contract. Yeah. And
that was
what I kept saying was I wanted to see what the Jets gave him. And I heard you guys talking about it before I came on. When they made the trade, I said, they're clearly going to give him a new contract. That's what I assumed. If it's less than $25 million, I'm going to be angry. I'm right with you, Zander. I would have been angry if the Jets gave him less than 25 because I felt like the Eagles should have done that. But now, God knows what he's asking for. He must be asking for what, $30 million to get close to what Garrett's.
I've heard at least 25 pretty consistently early in the process, and I'm like, at that point, I understood. I'm like, well, they're not going to 25. From the Eagles' perspective. And then you can debate where they should be.
Every day that passes is worse for him. I don't think his situation gets better with each passing day.
No, what are the Jets going to do? They're going to force him to play?
I mean, at this stage, like crazy. I mean, he's already been fined $1 million. If he doesn't get that increased contract, he just cost himself 7 figures for no reason.
I hope his agent knows what he's doing because.
Well, his agent is Tory Dan. He knows what he's doing. He's negotiated, hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts. But, sometimes the player is running things, and I think the player's run. Hassan's got a chip on his shoulder. He's always had a chip on his shoulder. Not a bad thing. Good thing. Has fueled him. he thinks he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and he's not treated like that. And basically, he's telling the truth. He is, for whatever reason. I mean, nobody has produced. There's two guys that have had double-digit sacks over the past 4 years. He's one.
Tim and Garrett, right?
Yeah. Might be Bosa. I forget who the second one is.
But either way, he's up there with some big names. And it's not even like he's had injury problems. He's never missed a game in his career.
No, and
you look at his career. He played 16
tremendously durable.
16 games all those seasons. Then he came here to Philly, played 17. Now, the issue could be, John, and I heard you talking about this too, the wear and tear on him, because this is a guy who's played over 800 snaps the last 4 seasons.
Yep.
The year before that, he played close to 700, and in his second year, he played over 800. I mean, this is a guy who's played a ton of snaps in the NFL, and he is going to be 30 this year, right?
He's going to be 30 in September. He's going to be 30 on September 22nd.
But I don't worry as much about edge rushers necessarily hitting a wall like you do with a cornerback.
No, I still that's think he's true. Got some reps they could play into their 30s and be effective. That part's true. But you hit the nail on the head, because I was told that by somebody who would know. He has been ridden into the ground from a rep standpoint, going past his time. Forget about Philly. The Eagles, going back to Carolina and his last year in Arizona, and even his last 3 years in Arizona were over 800. Then he was just under 700. Then he was near 900. Those were his last 3 years.
Yeah, almost 900 snaps in 2020. That's crazy.
Yeah. And in 2021, it was 850-ish. In 2022, remember, he had the 3 extra games. So it was well over 900 in 2022 going to the Super Bowl. And 2023 was over 900 as well. The Eagles were concerned, they wrote, it's like when the Eagles signed DeMarco Murray back in the day, the Cowboys knew they ran him into the ground. They ran him into the ground, and they knew it. And they knew what was coming, and the Eagles made a mistake. That's what the Eagles think is going to happen. It might not be until 2026 or 2025, but that was their biggest concern about, there was going to be the descent. And you could argue from 2022 to 20, he wasn't the same player last year as he was in 2022 already.
Yeah. He started to hit a wall a little down the stretch too, playing all those snaps, just like Josh Sweat did.
Yeah, him and everybody else on the Eagles defense.
But I get it from Reddick's perspective. He's 4th in the NFL over the last 4 years in sacks. He's, again, 1 of 2. And I think you're right, Bill. I think it's Miles, because I think Bosa was hurt the 1 year. 1 of 2 guys in double digits for those 4 years. That's it. I mean, he's been one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and nobody treats him like it.
Yeah.
So I get the chip on his shoulder. I really
you got to make money when you can in this league. You know that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Bill, let's move into the Eagles. Talking about we haven't had you on in a couple of weeks. We've had a mixed up schedule with the practices and everything. Appreciate you being here today. Just because we haven't talked to you, Bill, what have been your overall takes? I don't want to talk just about the game or a practice. I mean, we're 11 practices into this thing. They're in New England today for a joint practice. They're 1-0 in the preseason. What have been your takeaways so far from the Eagles training camp?
Well, the vibes were good, and then I made the mistake of saying on the air, man, all the vibes are so good with this Eagles team this year. And then the next day, McManus and Jeremy Fowler dropped the article about Hurts and Sirianni's relationship. But look,
I don't even think that was that wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad of an article. It was pretty much everything we already knew. It was just put into a 10-page article. Now, what we didn't know was that Jalen Hurts
Martindale stuff.
Called Wink Martindale, which to me was interesting because I know a lot of people took it as an indictment of Nick Sirianni, which, yes, it is for your quarterback not to trust his head coach. But I said, isn't it also an indictment of not only Brian Johnson, But Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach we've ever seen, Jason Kelsey, who's responsible for calling the blitz protections last year. Like, why didn't Jalen Hurts think, hey, I don't trust my head coach, but I could talk to my offensive coordinator, or I could talk to my offensive line coach, or I could talk to the greatest center of all time? No, he goes around everybody and calls Wink Martindale. So I just thought that was a strange thing that got me.
I didn't view it as a knock on any of them. I really didn't. I mean, look, I get it. You have coaches that you want to trust, but why is adding another voice a bad thing? Just like I talk to John about football every single day, you could say, well, why do you need to bring on Bill? Because Bill has a good opinion too.
But if he did it the right way, if there was a chain of command, like I just think you should talk to your coach. Like, we don't know. Did he tell Sirianni he was doing that? I just think it would have been strange.
The Eagles coaches reached out to Wink as well.
So then that would be different. And John, I loved your you were the one that asked the question, and Jalen said,
yeah,
what is this coming up for? You're like, hey, I didn't write
I didn't know.
Bill, the shirts are in production right now. I didn't write it with the Johnny Mac bobblehead.
Well, see, here's the thing. I was right there with Jalen. Jalen knows me, so he's asking me a question. Why is it written right now? It's not my place to say why somebody wrote something. If it were mine, so that's what I was trying to get to.
No, I thought you handled it well. I thought you handled it well.
I'm not trying to.
But outside of that, which threw some negative vibes into an overall positive training camp so far, I'm excited for the offense, obviously. You know, I think everything that you're hearing and you're seeing coming out of camp is Jalen looks good. Jalen looks healthy. He's picking up on this offense. Obviously, they got a ton of weapons. I still have my concerns about the defense. And even though they played the other night against the Baltimore Ravens and you saw some good things, I still have concerns about the linebackers. I don't know if Zach Baun is the answer. It's interesting that Vic Fangio's response to what they saw in Zach Baun to be able to play inside linebacker was a couple of plays with the Saints. He'd end up playing kind of like an off-ball linebacker. It was just, it bothers me that are the Eagles really trying to outsmart the entire NFL? So no one else in the NFL saw this guy as an off-ball linebacker, but the Eagles said, you know what? We do, and we're going to outsmart everybody. That's usually not a recipe for success when you think you're the smartest person in the room. So I do have my concerns there. Now, I think I read an article, John, that you wrote that Nakobe Dean is still going to probably win that job.
I think so.
I think so. But that's concerning to me that he hasn't necessarily yet. So you have the issues.
Well, he played well in Baltimore.
He played very well. He played very well. But to me, it was very telling, John, that you have Zach Baun in a T-shirt in the third quarter on the sidelines, and you got Nakobe Dean still playing. So to me, it's like the Eagles already made up their mind. Zach Baun's our starter. I think Baun played, a couple of series. He and Devin played 14 reps, and they were an ugly 14 reps. So, and then they got him in a T-shirt. So for me, if it's a competition between Zach Baun and Nakobe Dean, why is Nakobe Dean playing late into the third quarter and Zach Baun's laughing it up on the sidelines with the starters?
I think, and that'll be, the starters probably aren't going to play against New England because they're going to get their work in the joint practice. The defense might be a little bit different because Vic is old school. He wants them to get a series or two. So I think it'll be more like if there's a sea change, like you're not the only one, Bill, I heard bring that up. Like they're giving deference to Zach Baun. Well, that was the plan for Baltimore. But after he watches the tape, if it's still the plan, then you might be on to something. I got to wait and see because that was bad. And it wasn't just Zach.
He didn't look great. He looked like a guy who's never really played off-ball linebacker.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like. But I also have my concerns about that pass rush. And Nolan Smith, this is a guy where, and I will admit, I wanted to see the Eagles draft him at 10 2 years ago.
Yeah,
if they couldn't get Jalen Carter, I was saying take Nolan Smith at 10. So the fact that they were able to get both Carter and Nolan Smith, I was ecstatic. I thought it was the greatest draft pick ever. I know Nolan Smith got a sack in the Ravens game, but you heard Fangio talk about how, the tackle kind of missed his assignment and Smith was able to finish it off. Good by him. I still didn't see enough from Nolan Smith yet that I'm excited about this guy. And he's supposed to be part of the reason why you feel okay that they traded away Hassan Reddick. If that was Hassan Reddick in that Ravens preseason game, playing against third-string offensive linemen, Reddick would have probably had 5 sacks. So the fact that I didn't see Nolan Smith dominate.
Yeah.
I got to see Nolan Smith really step up. I'm starting to get my concerns right now.
Well, what about Bryce Huff? What about Bryce Huff? We haven't heard anything from him in camp. He's the guy that got the big bag of money to replace Hassan Reddick. We just talked about Hassan. Are you nervous on Bryce Huff? Because I got to admit, I am.
I'm not as concerned about Bryce Huff, only because we've seen him do it at the NFL level. I know he's only played 45% of the snaps, but as far as a pass rush, you saw him go double-digit sacks last year. You saw his win rate is through the roof, up there with guys like Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. So at least you've seen him do it against NFL talent. The reason I have more concerns against Nolan Smith is we haven't seen him do it yet. And I think for this this defense to generate a pass rush, we saw they need depth. It can't be all on Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat. They're going to have to get something from Nolan Smith, and I'm just not sure that he's going to be able to play at the NFL level yet. I'm not ruling him out, but I do have my major concerns. When I look at that defensive line, Nolan Smith's the guy that I'm worried about. I think Bryce Huff, can he grow into being more of an every down edge rusher? We'll see. Can he get better against the run? We'll see. But at least we've seen him in terms of win rate, be able to do it against really good offensive linemen.
Yeah, I'm with you with Huff, and that's kind of where I am. I already know he can rush the passer. The other stuff, maybe he's not as good at. Maybe he doesn't get to the point where, but I would argue Hassan wasn't great at it either. As long as you get to the quarterback, everybody's going to be happy. And I'm not as concerned with Bryce Huff as many are. You're right about Nolan. He's got to prove it. And Vic is honest, and he told you some of the issues. He's got to get better at the point of attack. Same thing with Nolan, though. All right. Yeah, he's got to get better at the point of attack. But if it's 3rd and 13 and he can get home, I think people are going to be happy. Offensively, we got no questions. This is going to be a great offense. Just
right guard.
Good.
Right, just the right guard position.
And with the other 4, as long as you get competent play from Mekhi Becton or Tyler Steen or somebody else, and right now it's looking like it's going to be Mekhi, you're going to be fine with that offensive line. The 3rd receiver as well. But again, if AJ's out there, Devontae Dallas, you're going to be fine. Now, I in Baltimore, no starters, obviously. No Jalen Hurts, no AJ, no Devontae, no Dallas. But the longest pass play was 11 yards, Bill. 11
It was fun
yards.
to watch, wasn't it? Wasn't that fun?
Oh, my. Nobody's getting any separation, but that's, the backup wide receivers are not good, except for Britton, and they're not going to give Britton a chance, from my perspective, because of the size issues. Here's my concern, though. And I get it. People don't get to see all the practices, and I've seen every one. This will be the first one I miss in Foxborough. There's no interceptions from Jalen Hurts. That's all good. That's very rare in training camp. Trust me, that's very rare. I don't know if that's a good thing. And I wrote about this at Sports Illustrated. We talked about it all off season. You gotta utilize the backs. You gotta dump it off. You gotta take what's there. I think we might be seeing an overcorrection to that. And I start thinking about how many deep shots are they taking in practice? They take some, but they're generally in 7-on-7s when there's more space. And in team drills, it's been a lot of get the ball out quickly, 2.3 seconds, Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier. I don't know. Is that concerned about overcorrection when you see what's going on with the Eagles offense?
We'll see. I still have a lot of trust in Kellen Moore, though. I mean, this is a guy who's called plays for a number 1 offense in this league. And for him to take away those shots down the field would shock me when you have guys like AJ and Devontae. But I am with you. I can't stand the stats from training camp about Jalen Hurts. Because to me, whether he throws an interception or whether he goes 15 to 16 means nothing to me, because you don't know, did he go through his progressions correctly? Did he make the right read?
Kevin O'Connell was talking about the other day about J.J. McCarthy. He's like, I know what he's supposed to do on every play. You might see a touchdown in a preseason game. That might not be the right read, the right play. You're trying to develop.
That's why it's so ridiculous to me when it's Jalen Hurts sets a record for no interceptions in camp. Who cares?
I love Elliott, but it's ridiculous. It's
look, ridiculous. He gets a lot of engagement with that crap. I get it.
Look, it's business, baby.
He gets a lot of engagement.
Business. Well, Nick laughs about it as well behind the scenes. I mean,
because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything when you're talking about practice and training.
And sometimes, Nick jokes about it a lot, and you'll hear him in press conferences, and he'll say, "You're doing a good job with the stats." He hates it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, whether it's subconscious or not, the Eagles have so much of a microscope on them. If Jalen Hurts does throw 2 interceptions at practice, look at OTAs. He was throwing interceptions all over the place.
Yeah.
And people were losing their minds. So it is something that turns into a talking point, and I think the Eagles are aware of it. So,
but you make a good point, John. I don't want to see them overcorrect. I don't want to see them change Jalen from what he does well. Yes, he needs to be better with the football this year. Too many interceptions last season. Still, I'd like to see him correct the fumbles 2 years in a row, puts the ball on the ground 9 times. It's just whether or not the Eagles jump.
I think every year he's in his career, he's put it on the ground 9 times.
I'd like to see him.
I'd
like to see him fix that, but don't change this guy too much. Don't make him like you were saying, 1-2, try to throw the ball, get the ball out of your hands. There's a lot of things he does do well. I do want to see him go through his progressions better. I want to see him have more trust in the pocket, step up at times, but still, his legs are an advantage that I want to see him utilize, and I think that they will. You've heard Kellen Moore talk about it. You've heard Nick Sirianni talk about it. I loved the way they talked about Jalen's running ability as not only being an advantage, but then Sirianni said, we're going to add some wrinkles to the quarterback running game. I love that. I think that's a big part of why this team and Jalen Hurts can be successful. Don't take away what the guy does well.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bill. I want to ask you about I want to go back to the defense. I want to ask about Quinyon, but before I do that, I got to ask you on wide receiver 3, Johnny Wilson, Britton Covey, Paris Campbell, outside the locker room. What do you think on wide receiver 3 right now? What's going to be the approach this year?
I've been saying for a while to our man, Andrew DeCecco, that I still do not think the wide receiver 3 is on the roster. Okay. And the preseason game, I was looking forward to saying, hey, someone proved me wrong. And I don't think anybody proved me wrong. The fact that they couldn't get any separation at all. And I know we're getting greedy here when you have weapons like AJ, Devontae, Dallas, Saquon. But I think there could be a third wide receiver that they could pick up. It doesn't have to be a superstar, but somebody that maybe can give you a little bit more than what you would get. And Johnny Wilson's had a great camp from all accounts, but there's a reason why. What was he, a 5th or 6th rounder, John? I can't remember.
6th.
So, I don't know if I want to rely on that, but
you look at the committee approach. What do you think of the committee approach?
That's fine if you have some good players on the committee. I just don't know. I don't know who would be on your committee there.
Committee of dunces isn't going to help you.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Now, Andrew DeCecco really likes
Britton's good.
Yeah, I was going to say, Andrew DeCecco's always spoke highly of Britton Covey in that slot. It's just he's so small, but
he's so small.
Bill, I can't get D Gunn in the green room saying crash test Covey, crash test. I can't get it out of my head, man. I just can't.
Well, they had the bet going all year with Seth about whether or not Britton was going to return a punt for a touchdown. It never happened. I think that was.
I tell you, they got a guy, Jacob Harris. Now here to get back to my point on overcorrection. You're right. Nobody's getting separation in Baltimore. It was ugly, from our perspective, where you get to see it from over the field, and you can see just how little separation these receivers are getting. Now, the one thing about Jacob Harrison, I'm not trying to say he should make the team or anything, although he is a good special teams player. Ran a 4.39 coming out a couple years ago. He can run. So, there's a guy who can just run past people at 6'5", and he's locked up because nobody on Baltimore thinks he's running by him.
Yeah.
There's when I talk about that. Look, if you're not taking shots, NFL players, and Nate Wiggins already I've seen in Baltimore, they're fitting him for a gold jacket, after one preseason game where he hurt his shoulder because he's too small. But first drive, Bill, it was 3 different guys. It was Johnny Wilson, it was Joe Nada, it was John Ross. He locked them up like it was Deion Sanders in his prime.
Yeah.
I'm with you. They're going outside the organization.
Well, the guy I was excited about, and he has been a major disappointment, was Ainias Smith.
Yeah.
I really thought he had a shot to come in here as a rookie and win that job, and I'm not even sure he's going to make the team at this point.
At the end of practice, what day are we? Tuesday. So Sunday's practice. They did this one-on-one competition with the whole team to end practice, watching with younger players. One of the reps was Ainias Smith against Andre Sam, an undrafted free agent safety.
Yeah.
And it was a good throw, and he had a chance to make the play, and Andre Sam knocked it out. Bang, bang play. CJ Gardner-Johnson just lit Ainias Smith up. The whole defensive sideline just erupted. He said, "You haven't done shit all camp." I wasn't going to say that, but Jimmy reported it, so I'll report it since he went down the road. That poor kid has lost all his confidence.
Yeah.
I don't see how he even makes the team. And they don't want to cut a 5th-round pick. They don't want to cut a 5th-round pick, but he has done nothing.
It's shocking to me because you look at his time at Texas A&M. The guy was a 5-year player there, has all types of SEC records. You would think this kid would be able to come in here and at least do something, but
confidence
as we
is
talk,
a big thing, man.
You
lose
I wonder if
in
it's
this.
not even talent right now. It's confidence. It's in your head. I mean, he's just fighting the football, as Johnny
I
mentioned.
went through Jalen Reagor. Now, people make fun of Jalen Reagor. The Eagles will see him today. He's still in the league with New England. Jalen Reagor was a big-time prospect. It wasn't like everybody said, you know what, Jalen Reagor sucks, but the Eagles took him at 21, wherever they took him. Everybody thought Jalen Reagor was a big-time prospect, just a matter of how big time. And he lost his confidence, and that was it, man.
Yeah.
That was it.
But look, as we're talking about wide receiver 3, it's not going to take much to get more production than what you got last season, because you look at last year between Julio, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Quez Watkins, 380 yards. That's it. That's all you got between all 3 of them combined. So we don't need an absolute stud to play wide receiver 3 for the Philadelphia Eagles.
You need a guy that when his number is called, he doesn't drop the football.
As long as AJ and Devontae are healthy, you don't need.
But it's
that's
right
the concern.
Them. You are correct. God forbid one of those guys goes down. They are light at wide receiver.
Because, Devontae Parker was barely here. I barely thought about him until they lost him, until he retired. And I said, boy, they got nothing to back up AJ and Devontae.
And Campbell's still battling that groin, right?
Yeah, he's still got a groin. We'll see if he's back out there today. He better get back out there because he's going to be forgotten pretty quickly. But that's a difficult injury for a receiver, a groin injury. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I'm with you. I think that is the position they are most likely to go outside the building to try to fix, wide receiver 3. And that's why he's superstar Billy Vegas at Bill Colarulo.
The superstar Billy Vegas. I haven't heard that in a long time. Yeah, that was my dad's idea for my wrestling name.
That's a good one. Your dad should be a booker. That's a good gimmick. Middays 10 to 2 with our buddy Mike Missinelli. You guys are going to hit a home run. And thanks for still taking our calls, Bill. Now that you're a superstar.
This is where I started, man. My JAKIB Sports.
No doubt about it, Bill. Wait, Bill, last one on the way out, though. Just how intrigued are you on Quinyon Mitchell? I feel like, every report coming out of camp has been great on him. I'm very intrigued.
Yeah.
What have been your thoughts?
It's hard not to be intrigued because you worried that this kid played at Toledo, and was this going to be too big for him, this transition? You just talked about Anaya Smith, who played in the SEC against the best talent in college football, and now he's lost all of his confidence because he can't make the transition to the NFL level. And then you got this kid, Quinyon, coming out of Toledo, and he's not backing down from A.J. Brown. He's not backing down from Devontae Smith. He's checking all the right boxes. You saw him make a real nice play on the ball against the Ravens. Probably should have intercepted it, but I'm very intrigued by him. And I love that because I'm high on Keely Ringo. We've talked about that before. I love that they're going to move Quinyon into that nickel corner, hopefully, because now if Keely wins that job on the outside, I like our top 3 starting corners now with Slay, Ringo, and Quinyon. Big upgrade from last season.
Bill, that's the only thing I don't like. I think Quinyon's going to be a star. I think he's going to be a great, and Vic admits it, he's playing outside corner. So why are we wasting time? Get him out there day one, and you can make do with Avonte Maddox until Cooper. People forget Cooper DeJean. Cooper's coming. Hopefully he'll be out there by this weekend, as a matter of fact. If the Eagles' original timetable holds. And when he comes back, the whole dynamic changes. So I'm like, what are we doing? Just get him outside, Vic. That's the one thing I don't agree with.
If you do that, though, and I'm not against it, like you said, because if he's the best corner on the team, start him outside. But if you do that now, you block Ringo and Rodgers, so you'll have Quinyon and Darius Slay, and then yes, Avonte can be good when he's healthy, but that's been a big if.
Well, he's healthy right now. So all you got to get is Avonte as a bridge to Cooper, because that's where you're going in the slot ultimately. Yeah.
It's a good problem. It's a good problem to have right now.
Yeah,
certainly a better problem than what they had last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Ringo too. It's definitely an uphill battle.
Well, I love Ringo, but I mean, that's where Mitchell's going to be. And maybe next year it's like Mitchell and Ringo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I like that.
Yeah. But this year it's going to be Mitchell outside. You might as well get there as early as possible. My opinion, obviously not Bix. And Bix got some cachet, so he gets to do what he wants to do. Like Billy C, some cachet.
Exactly.
Billy C. Well, I appreciate it, boys. Hopefully I'll see you next week. And John, heal up. I saw your tweet, man. Heal up.
All right. Thanks, bud.
Bill, thanks for being here, man. We'll be listening to you today on 97.5 The Fanatic. Appreciate you, brother.
See you guys.
All right, see ya. There's Bill Colarulo joining us on Birds 365.
Superstar Billy Vegas.
Superstar Billy Vegas. I love it. Good stuff from Bill Colarulo there. We're going to get to our next commercial break. A lot of people watching. We appreciate all you guys in the chat. Almost 400 of you live on YouTube. Make sure you guys smash that like button. We got to get at least 150 likes today with all these people watching. So if you're enjoying the show, make sure you smash that like button. I'm going to hit the commercial break now. We have Les Bowen coming up in hour number 2. But I also want to get the injury update from John McMullen. I want to talk about Cooper DeJean. I don't know if John's had any updates on him, so we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about all that and more coming up next on Birds 365. Stay tuned, everybody.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Bird 365, a Tuesday edition, August 13th. Moving right along, 24 days, I believe, right? Yesterday was 25. Is it 24 days now?
Yeah, what are we, August 13th? So we got 18 days plus, 24.
24 days away until Sao Paulo, Brazil, when the Eagles start their 2024 campaign. We'll see how it all plays out. Plenty to talk about until we get to that point. Johnny Mack, I want to get the injury update from you. I know maybe you haven't heard much, but where are we on Cooper DeJean and where he is? Do we expect him to be back? I know this is kind of that third week, so maybe another couple more days.
Well, that's Saturday would be the key day. That's when the Eagles will be back on the practice field in Philadelphia after the game. That would be the key day. I would circle that day. If Cooper's not back for that practice, then it's taking a little bit longer than originally expected, and that's not a positive thing. So that's where I would circle the calendar Saturday, where that'll be about that 3-week demarcation line. And hopefully he'll be back. But if he's not, it's going to be a narrative. As far as the other guys injured, same list. We mentioned Paris Campbell a little bit, dealing with the groin injury. He's got to get back out there. Oren Burks has been, since practice one, he has not been able to get back on the field. I see him every day. It's, he's out there. He's rehabbing on not doing a ton of stuff. Like you see Cooper's working out. Sidney Brown, you see Sidney Brown, but he comes out to watch practice. So, but not a good sign, especially the way Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Ben Van Sumeren are playing as backup linebackers. I mean, he's going to have a tough time making this roster if he cannot get back on the field pretty quickly. CJ is his same, he's got a banged up shoulder. The Eagles, very early said it's not serious. He's been out there. He's, chirping at everybody, his typical energetic self. The defense exploded, with his trash talk to Anias Smith, which probably didn't help Anias. And the two injuries from the game, there were nothing evident in the game. And you said, they got out of there pretty healthy, which is always a key in preseason games. Grant Calcaterra and Albert Agholor, so at the same position, that's a concern. Grant was a shoulder. Albert O was an abdomen, but they were both out there watching practice on Sunday. So again, can't be too serious. Patrick Johnson, who won the game with the strip sack, essentially had a lower leg contusion, but he was able to practice at least in a limited fashion. So that's what's going on on the injury front. But yeah, the Cooper stuff, I mean, it's amazing how quickly people forget. He's coming. He's coming. Say the same thing at safety with Sidney Brown.
Yeah, that's where I was going next is Sydney. But people are interested, obviously, John, in the rookie Cooper DeJean. They want to know when he's back out there. So I got a question.
I get it. I get that people are interested, but I'm surprised how many people forget he's coming back. And it's like, that's why I don't understand the Quinyon Mitchell stuff, because he is coming. Again, maybe not week 1, which was the hope originally, because it gets pushed back. But, Avonte Maddox is a good player and he's healthy. Now, you can say Avonte's taking first team snaps at safety right now because CJ's out. But CJ's coming back. He's not in risk of missing week 1. So with all the corners, I'm not sure why they're so gung-ho on getting the best 3 on the field as far as the best fit on the field. Because Quinyon's not a slot player. And Vic says that every freaking press conference. He admits it. Is he going to be better in the slot as a rookie who's never done it before against the Green Bay Packers than Avonte Maddox? Or even Tyler Hall? That's tough duty. And yes, maybe is Isaiah Rodgers a better outside corner than Tyler Hall is a slot? Yeah. Is he a better outside corner than Avonte Maddox in the slot? I don't know. When Avonte's healthy. And he's healthy. So I'm not talking about 17 games. I'm talking about one game. So I don't agree with the decision making there. At least the way it looks like it's going.
Got it. Good stuff. Good breakdown on the injuries there. We'll see when everybody returns. John, we have a super chat here from our man, M. Martin. Thank you, brother, for the $20 super chat. That's big. We appreciate you appreciate that support of the channel. We'll get to your question now. M. Martin says, I always thought they gave up on Reagor too early. Uh-oh, M. Martin's opening up a can of worms here with this one. From an organizational standpoint, I always wondered what was the difference regarding Agholor and Reagor in regards to the short leash. Nelson broke out in his 3rd year. I think they were both drafted. Like, I think Agholor was 20th and Reagor was 21st overall. I think that's how it went. But John, what's your response to Martin there on Reagor and the short leash?
No, they didn't give up on Reagor too early. I mean, he was shot from a mental standpoint, and they knew it. And
you just talked about it earlier in the show how important confidence is.
Yeah, and they worked out a deal, and they were able to get something from, ironically, Minnesota, who took Justin Jefferson right after him. But I did see in the chat, like a lot of people, there's so much revisionist history. I mean, people got to be honest with themselves. Everybody knew Jefferson was better than Reagor. I see that constantly. Well, Jefferson was picked 22 because most of the teams in the NFL thought he was only a slot player. So nobody in the NFL, if anybody who does this for a living thought Justin Jefferson was going to become what he is, and that's the best receiver in football,
right?
He ain't getting picked 22nd.
I know. It's so true.
He ain't getting picked 21st.
By the way, weren't like many receivers picked in front of him that year? I know CeeDee Lamb was one of them. I know Jamar Chase, I think, was one of them. I forget what the exact. Jamar was a different year. But I thought there was a couple that went in front of both.
Oh,
of
there
those
were.
Guys.
The 20. I'll get them for you. It was 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
So that was the Joe Burrow draft.
Yeah, Henry Ruggs. That's right. Jerry Jeudy. And CeeDee Lamb were the 3 wide receivers that went.
And Jalen Reagor.
And Jalen Reagor 4th, yep.
Yeah. So don't give me this bullshit that everybody knew Justin Jefferson. And by the way, the Eagles scouting staff wanted Justin Jefferson. The coaching staff wanted Jalen Reagor because they wanted a different type of player. They wanted a player they thought could stretch the field horizontally and vertically. Yes, it sounds silly now because Jefferson has turned into what Jefferson has become. But nobody even debated. You bring up those guys, Ruggs and Judy. Like nobody debate. You're an Alabama guy. Nobody debated that Justin Jefferson was even in their league. And he's much better. And Ruggs, obviously, stupid. I'm not even talking about the stupidness, but he's nowhere near the player Justin Jefferson is. Jerry Judy's nowhere near. CeeDee Lamb's great. He's nowhere near. Jalen Reagor's obviously nowhere. But I can't.
You don't hear Brandon Ayuk get talked about much from this draft, John.
Brandon Ayuk is tremendous.
He went right after Jefferson, 3 spots after. Eagles also.
And by the way, the Saints were going to take Jalen Reagor at 24. So this assumption that he wasn't a big time, like people got to be honest with themselves, and they like to play that hindsight game. I knew. Nobody in the NFL knew Justin Jefferson. They thought he'd be a good slot receiver because he played in the slot at LSU, and they didn't, they didn't look back at the tape the year before when he played outside and he was just as good. But whatever. I mean, people got it wrong. They didn't get it. You're still the 22nd pick. That's still impressive. But he's better than all those guys. And nobody knew it. But people like to play that hindsight game, and that's great. But the Eagles didn't give up on Jalen Reagor too early. I mean, he lost his confidence. He was making mental mistakes all over the place. I remember there was a game when he went to Minnesota, there was a game where it was the largest comeback in NFL history where the Vikings fell behind by 5 points. And they came back to win the game. And they won the game despite the fact that Jalen Reagor had to go in because he was banged up. And Kirk Cousins threw the ball to him twice, and he ran the wrong route both times. Well, he stopped running once, and he ran the wrong route the other time. The guy was just, he lost it. And the difference between him and Nelson's issues were catching the football. Like he is not to this day. He's still in the league. He's with Baltimore.
Yeah.
He's still solid. He's still a solid NFL player, but he's never been a consistent guy catching the football to where
he's never lived up to the first round draft pick of what you expect a wide receiver to be for you.
But he had a big Super Bowl.
He really had a big year that year with Carson Wentz. I remember one of the first games versus Washington, and Wentz airs it out deep, and Agholor caught it and got into the end zone. He had a big year that year. I think I don't know what his stats were, but he had a big impact.
Yeah, he's a legit NFL receiver. Never lived up. If he gets picked in the 3rd round, you'd say, "Oh, that's a pretty good pick."
Yeah, right.
Not consistent catching the football. He doesn't have great hands. He doesn't track the football well. But he's tremendously athletic. He's always open. He would get consistent separation because of his athleticism. So you could see traits with Nelson Agholor, even when he was struggling. He had some mental struggles as well when he got benched, and he was having some real difficulties. Almost, beat me up in the locker room once because he was so upset about some of the criticism he was getting. But he's a legitimate NFL receiver. This will be his, I got to count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th year. He's still here. So, Nelson gets too much crap. And it all talk about expectations all the time. If he's not a 1st round pick, he's a really successful pick, even if he's a 2nd rounder. But he was the 20th overall pick in the draft, and he never lived up to that hype. Much better player than Jalen Reagor, though. Much better player.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor has struggled. Johnny Mack, we're going to get to our commercial break soon. We have Les Bowen coming up on the show. We'll talk to him. He wrote a good piece about the Tim McManus ESPN article. He's been covering camp for PHLY. I don't know if he's been down there at all, but he has been writing some articles for PHLY. So we'll talk to Les Bowen next. John, you recap the injuries. What time are things today in New England? When are the Eagles scheduled to?
Oh boy, it's similar here. I think they're starting at 10:30. They're scheduled to go a little bit longer to about 12:30. Nick is talking before practice. So is Jared Mayo, and you will have players after practice. So similar setup. They're going to go a little bit longer because generally
the weather there is. I don't think it's as hot there as it is here, right?
I don't think it's hot. It's that hot here, is it?
No, maybe not.
I open the windows trying to get some
in the last
fresh
couple
air.
of weeks, we've had some 95.
No, we've had very humid weather.
Yeah.
So I assume it's only going to be 82 here. It's only 71 now. So it would have been a nice day to practice here as well. So I assume it's somewhat similar up in Foxborough.
Good stuff. So we'll be following that all day today. John, we'll probably come back if you're able to do it and do a football 24/7 just to recap the day. I want to make sure everybody's up to date.
I don't know if I'm going to have any information. So
well, other than what I normally give, we can, add some commentary. You can reach out to a beat reporter maybe, and he can tell you what he saw, and we can go from there, even if it's just a 10, 15, 20-minute hit. We'll do it that way. So we'll coordinate that, and we'll do that later on today. So good stuff, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I know everybody wants to talk about the 2024 season, had to hit our super chat, but appreciate all you guys being here. Let's get to our commercial break. Les Bowen coming up next on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your greenhouse? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody. A Tuesday edition of Birds 365, joined now by Les Bowen, longtime cover of the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the best to ever do it. Les, thanks for joining the show, man. Great to have you on.
Hey, good to see you guys again.
Yeah, Les. All right, bringing the energy. I thought Zach was on. I wasn't expecting you to be that excited.
Yeah, it's good to, I'm like you. I'm not in Foxborough, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, that is
a weird place for a pro football team to play and practice.
Yes, it is.
It's
very
as if
weird.
the Eagles, if Quakertown or maybe Glassboro had built a stadium for the Eagles and they practiced and played there. That's kind of what that's like.
Yeah, but you get so when you get to Green Bay, so that's great. And it's like you got a football field in the middle of a neighborhood, and people are renting out their.
But there's a reason for that. I mean, the Packers go back to the founding of the NFL.
Yes.
Foxborough was just whatever skeevy owner maybe it was Victor Kayam or somebody like that. Didn't want to pay money for a stadium, and so some people out in the wilderness of Massachusetts near the Rhode Island border, decided to build him a stadium.
Yeah, it's not. That's what it doesn't have that same feel. That's what I'm trying to say. As Green Bay, which is tremendous and everything about it, but Foxborough is the exact opposite. So I'm like, I mean, you've made that drive, I'm sure, many times. It is brutal to get through.
I usually stayed in Providence and drove up.
Yes,
that's Providence how far it is from Boston. Is that people actually teams do this too? Fly into Providence, stay in Providence, and just drive up from there. It's quicker.
It's easier, and Providence is a nice little city.
Yeah.
Love Providence. But up inside baseball, let's talk about actual football. Probably the most important, which I don't like missing. By the way, right after you left camp, I tripped over a tripod.
Oh God!
I've been dealing with a calf thing. I didn't trip, I didn't fall, but I strained it pretty good. But anyway, so
it's a dangerous time of year for everybody.
It is a dangerous.
If you don't stretch,
Exactly, and getting old sucks. But I digress. The progression of this team, it is probably the most important practice of the summer because it's a joint practice, and this is the only one. The Eagles typically have had quite a few. This year, it's the only one, unless I don't think this is the best. New England's not very good. I'd like a better test on paper. I don't know. I think, you're at the behest of other teams and you can't necessarily work things out. With Baltimore would have been great, but they're playing each other later in the season. So it's important, but are you going to temper it a little bit no matter what because of the opposition?
I guess so. It's weird that they're only doing one day. I understand the game is Thursday.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you have gone up and practiced there yesterday? Because the New England practiced yesterday. They just didn't practice with the Eagles. I've never heard of just doing one day. They
did one day with Indianapolis last year.
You're right.
One day.
I forgot that. But that's just that's a lot of money to spend to bring all your stuff up for practice.
It is. Yeah.
Just to do it one day. And if the weather isn't good or, it can, you're pinning a lot on this. It seems like if you're the Eagles, I don't quite get it. It is, they talk about how important this is and how it's more important than the preseason games. And then they only schedule one day of it in the entire preseason. So that's very odd. And you're right. The Patriots aren't good. You want to see, how Quinyon Mitchell looks against a real quarterback. Well, Drake May, whoever those other guys are.
Ellie Zappi, Joe Milton. They're excited about Joe Milton because he had a fourth quarter drive in the preseason.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. So I don't know.
But we take what the coaches tell us about this at face value, that this is so valuable. And I can understand theoretically it is. I mean, it's like a preseason game, only you're controlling it instead of the referees controlling it. You can say we're going to do a period of red zone, where in a real preseason game, you might not get much red zone, or something like that. But I went to the most recent one I went to was Cleveland 2 years ago. And we kept waiting for matchups that never happened. Cleveland held out Myles Garrett. The Eagles had several key guys a little dinged up. And it just didn't – what you actually saw on the field was a lot of Jack Stoll, It didn't really – we had it all built up as, oh, boy, the Eagles and the Browns,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the Browns came here last year after that. So they did that home and home sort of. And Myles Garrett did practice the first day. And boy, he ate the Eagles alive.
And that's what
then they held him out the second day. And it's like, I got that feeling. I'm like, well, Myles didn't practice and the Eagles looked a lot better. So yeah, you always have that context, but that's practice in general, Les. There's a lot, and our buddy Elliot Shore Parks with the stats, and we bring it up, and Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown an interception. Like, there's so much that goes into that. Like, what are the Eagles trying to accomplish in a certain drill? Sometimes it's a bad thing, because one of the things I'm concerned about is sort of an overcorrection on the offense. And by that, I mean,
if he doesn't take any chances.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you get to the preseason game in Baltimore and he's not playing. So it has nothing to do with Jalen. Their longest completion was for 11 yards, Les. 11 yards. Everything.
Well, then you reel into even though it's a new offense and all that good stuff, and they need the work, you get into the Nick Sirianni's favorite thing, which is we don't want to show them anything to put it on film. The teams will know what we're going to do. Which is
these guys are unbelievable with their
Nick
you all run the same thing.
Nick is the worst I've ever seen. It's just ridiculous. It's like I can't tell you, who the kicker is going to be Sunday.
And by the way, Les, it was great because Jake Laser was there on Sunday. And, nothing against Jay. I mean, Fox pays the NFL very handsomely for extra access. So he's on the field with Dom and everybody else, and he's taking video of practice right in the middle of team drills, which we would be shot by the snipers.
Yeah, they run around yelling at you. No cameras, no cameras.
And he's shooting video and putting it on Twitter and X. What happened to competitive advantage?
And they don't let any of the other rights holders do that. I mean, that's really weird. That's very, very odd. I wonder if they even understood what he was doing, but.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe not. I think if CBS pushed, they could do it as well. I mean, those $1 billion checks take you a long way. I'm not blaming Jay, but my whole point is it's not going to matter from a competitive advantage standpoint.
Right.
That Jake Laser put up one play in team drills.
Yeah. Or if you actually ran some of your offense in a preseason game with third string players, I don't think everybody would have people know what Kellen Moore does. I don't think he's invented some new concept that he's going to spring on the NFL game one in Brazil. I mean, it's just run your damn offense. You haven't had
exactly. And ironic thing is, if you ask Kellen Moore, a lot of Eagles fans, understandably, because of what went on last year, are excited about all the motion and the bunch formations. And if you asked him, and he's honest, he said, what's the most important thing? Clean operation, execution. He talks that stuff.
Which is, you need to run it to do that.
Yeah. They had 4 or 5 false starts the other day.
Yeah.
So people are going to be pretty upset with the motion if they keep jumping off sides before they even snap the ball. It's always about execution.
Yeah.
But they're all running the same stuff. Kellen Moore's been an offensive coordinator for 6 years now. As you said, everybody's got every piece of film. Even fans can pay $99 to get it.
Yeah.
And they still think they're the CIA, Les.
Yeah,
it's amazing to me.
It's a habit, at this point. And it used to be, it's the whole thing changed around social media. There was a time in the Andy Reid era when we went out to practice on Thursdays and Fridays. We watched practice,
Oh, yeah.
With the understanding that we wouldn't report on, if they were running a fake punt or something like that, we wouldn't report it. But all that is gone. We don't get any. We watch stretching drills now during the season. We don't ever see the real practice, because that would be like the Dr. Strangelove. They'll see the big board.
Yeah, you're right, Les. Social media definitely changed it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doug used to let us watch install, and which was pretty cool, but somebody reported Jason Peters was going to play, and that was the end of that. And we haven't been able to see anything. So when training camp ends, that'll be the end of our full practice access. We can watch the entire practice now. And there's certain things they don't want us to report. And it's usually meaningless. I found out the kickoff rule was one of them. Like, how are they going to do it? Everybody does the same damn thing. Yeah. They got dual returners, and the one that doesn't catch it turns into the lead blocker.
No kidding.
Yeah. Eagles are doing it the same exact way as everybody else. It's you're right about the competitive advantage stuff. It's gone way too far, but it's not going to change.
No, it sure isn't. It's only going to get worse.
To get back on the field, the Baltimore game, because the defense, the starters played a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, those linebackers were bad, Les.
Yeah.
They were bad. And the ironic thing.
Bound thing, this has, I don't want to interrupt you, John, but sometimes coaches and coordinators get an idea of something, and it's really hard to disabuse them of that idea. Zach Bond has never been a real linebacker.
No.
He's 27 years old. Is this working? Fangio's very enthusiastic. It kind of reminds me, and I said this to someone else, of Jim Johnson and Mark Semino. Jim Johnson was convinced that Mark Semino was who he needed at middle linebacker instead of when they got Jeremiah Trotter back after Trotter had left. And it took a long time. Trotter spent several weeks running down the field on special teams.
And I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great comparison, Les, because Jim Johnson was a great coordinator.
He sure was, but he didn't understand that Mark Semino, he loved the fact that Semino was never caught out of position, that he could diagnose, he was instinctive. The problem was he couldn't make a play once he got there. The running back would run over him or the receiver would run past him once he got to the point where he was supposed to be. But to Jim, the fact that he got to the point where he was supposed to be was like, oh my goodness, he doesn't get Trot would get play action. He'd be running in up the middle, to stop the run, and they'd throw over him and stuff. So,
but that
thought this was just, Mark Semino. Oh boy, and no. And I just wondered
that's kind of my, because Big Fangio is a great defensive coordinator, but that doesn't mean he's perfect. Like, I think there's a lot of, he gets a lot of cachet, reputation, whatever, and people just default and say, well, Vic likes it. Well, sometimes, and that's why I like your comp, Jim Johnson. Nobody's going to criticize Jim.
Right.
Everybody makes mistakes. And I watched that game, and I asked Vic the question. I'm the one who asked it. I said, Jacoby played pretty well. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. played pretty well. Ben Van Sumeren played very well. Zach
Let's
Bowen
not
and
get
Devin
carried
White.
away.
He did, but he did in the game, but it was late in the game.
Yeah.
And Vic pointed out correctly, contextually, they're playing against second and third team guys, sometimes fourth team guys. So you got to put it in context, which he's completely right.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sitting there saying, Devin White and Zach Bowen, I didn't see Lamar Jackson out there. I didn't see Derrick Henry out there. The Ravens didn't play anybody on offense. So they were playing against second team guys and they were faltering. So to me, that's a little bit weighted.
Yeah.
As opposed to what Nakobe and Trot did. I don't know.
It's an open
we at the
question as
time
to whether they have any starting quality linebackers at this point.
Well, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
I think they got a bunch of good backup linebackers. I've said that. I think they're solid. They have solid linebacker depth. They have no starters at linebacker. That's a concern to me.
What the hell happened to Devin White? Was it the injuries, do you think? The two knees, same knee twice, I guess, in 2 years.
I mean, I've always been, look, unless, and PFF is not the gospel, but unless they have a personal animus to Devin White, which I do not think they have, he has not played well his entire career, with the exception of the run to the Super Bowl, which is one of the great anomalies because he was phenomenal in those 3 games. He was off the charts, number 5 overall pick. He looked like the number 5 overall pick. But boy, Les, his film is bad, and it's always been bad.
The one thing that I've heard is, you know, sometimes at some positions, it's a lot has to do with who you're playing with. And Levante David, when Devin White came into the league, Levante David was an elite linebacker.
He's still good. He's like 35 and he's still good.
Maybe he made Devin White look better than, you know, Devin White was able to sort of make plays that people noticed, you know. I don't know. I don't watch the.
Well, he does make splash plays because, you know, he's a great athlete. So if he guesses right, you know, he can make a splash play. But I don't anticipate
Zach Bowen will have the same effect on Devin White as Levante David.
Yeah, I don't think. Nor Vita Vea in front of him as a note. But, you know, hopefully Jordan Davis. But here's the grades of Devin White from PFF, Les. 2019 was his rookie season. They graded 90 linebackers. He was 68th. 2022, it was 83. He was number 62. 2021, it was 86. He was number 79. 2022, there were 81. He was number 74. And 2023 last year, there were 82. He was number 80. I mean, typically what I say about PFF is if they say you're playing well, you're probably playing well. If they say you're playing poorly, you're probably playing poorly. And then there's a lot of context in between. As you mentioned, who are you playing with? Are you playing injured? Stuff like that doesn't factor into it. But boy, he's been consistently poorly graded throughout his NFL career. So that's number one. And number two, Les, there's 31 other teams in this league. This was the former number 5 overall pick. The Eagles gave him $3.5 million and some incentives. That is a red flag, don't you think?
It is. Yes, it is. And there's the fact that Tampa has its ups and downs, obviously, especially now Brady's gone. But you kind of think those guys know a little bit about defense.
What's hot?
They tend to be good there, you know, year in and year out. So that says a lot to me.
Yeah, it's not like they had Matt Patricia down there. No doubt about that. Les, let's move into another question I have on the defense is the edge rushers, and namely Bryce Huff. You know, they replaced this guy. Hassan Reddick is back in the news. Now he wants out of the Jets. The Eagles' replacement for him is Bryce Huff. We haven't heard much on him in camp. Is it too early to overreact, Les, or am I right to be concerned?
Oh, I'm concerned. I never thought. First of all, it was a trade Howie Roseman didn't want to make, and Howie was very defensive about it back in the winter.
Yeah,
there's no question. Hassan Reddick is a more talented pass rusher than Bryce Huff. Huff is younger. Maybe he can develop. I think that was their hope. But he's really only had the one good year last year. I don't think he has the talent level of Hassan Reddick, but you see what's up with Hassan Reddick right now. I mean, the Jets line on this through their media is that when they made the trade, they weren't really incredibly stupid. They were just a little bit stupid. They thought they had agreement from Hassan and his representatives that he would play this year. They would adjust the contract. They'd give him a couple million and some incentives. And, he'd play this year and they'd work on a long-term deal. And then mandatory minicamp came along and Hassan said, no, I don't want to do that. And now they're in Neverland. That's why Hassan Reddick isn't here. I think there's a lot of, I don't really know much about his representation or anything like that. I don't do that kind of stuff anymore in my day-to-day work. Thank God.
Yeah, it's Tory Dandy who's he's
well-known
done,
agent. Yeah,
he's done $1 billion, right? So it's not like, I think this is player driven. I think, look, Hassan has a chip on his shoulder, and rightfully so. He's been one of the NFL's best pass rushers, but for whatever reason, people don't put him up there with Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, those types of guys. And he's got a chip on his shoulder.
But what he wants is to be paid for what he's done, I think.
Exactly.
You don't get that. It's a shame. The Cardinals wasted the first 3 years of his career. He's now almost 30 years old. But nobody can fix that now.
No, nobody can.
He needs to play this year and do really well, and then maybe get a big money deal from somebody. But in the meantime, the Eagles are left with Bryce Huff, as you mentioned, Zander, and he's okay. I don't think he's bad, but they won't be as good on the edge unless some of the young guys unless Sweat has a comeback year, unless Nolan Smith breaks out. They need maybe this Jalix Hunt, maybe somebody. They're not as good on the edges. They ought to be really good inside. And maybe that will help the edge. Maybe people will have to double up the inside guys with Jalen Carter and all that. But the edge isn't going to be what it was with Hassan Reddick here, because he's one of the most talented players in the league. I mean, that year, the Super Bowl year 2 years ago, I didn't cover Reggie White when he was here. I've never seen anybody.
One of the great defensive seasons in Eagles history from an individual.
Yes.
Player.
Yes.
At Les Bowen, I know you got to leave at 9:45, Les. You got a hard out.
Yeah.
At PHLY, make sure you see Les there writing. Real quick, our buddy Tim McManus, the big story.
I've got a few more minutes. It's all right. I can answer that one. Yeah.
The most interesting part to me was Jalen reaching out to Wink Martindale, which Wink said in his 40 years of coaching, he's never had that before. I took that as a positive.
Oh,
I didn't think the piece was negative at all. A lot of people took it negative.
It was a great. Fans exasperate me sometimes. I understand a little bit of it, but I've been yelling all offseason that we needed a real explanation of what the hell happened, and we never got one from the Eagles. And this is the best attempt at that I've seen. And it didn't just go through last year. It showed you what they're trying to do to make this doesn't happen again, which I think is very necessary and very, is very welcome to me. But the Wink Martindale thing, to me, that's something like a Tom Brady would do that, or a Peyton Manning. You can take the attitude of, what is Nick going to be offended? I don't care. I I think that's to go to the guy that gave you trouble and say, okay, what did you see here? Why did you want to do this against us? What did you see me do? That's next level to me. That's tremendous on just the fact that he cares enough to do that, first of all, is encouraging. And second, that he's smart enough to do it and to presumably take to heart what Wink Martindale told him. Yes, do that. Yes.
I agree, Les, for sure. I'm with you on that all the way.
Yeah. And he did it good, and I think it was positive as a whole for Jalen Hurts, and it displays his work ethic and why he's gotten to the point he has. People forget he's only 26, a second round pick. This guy wasn't a top 5 pick.
Right.
And overall, I think it was very positive look inside to Jalen Hurts in his preparation.
One more point on that piece that I wanted to make. It amazed me. We all saw that happen down the stretch with the Eagles. Over 2 months, this unfolded week after week after week after week after week. Did it bother you that, given the things that were said in there and the things that people knew were going on, that Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Lurie couldn't get people in a room, Nick, Jalen, Brian Johnson, whomever, and somehow get this worked out to some?
Yeah, I mean, I still think they don't know what happened. You pointed out, I still think they honestly don't know what happened, and that's a problem to me. And I've said from the start, Les, Jeffrey Lurie, I mean, I don't like this setup. That's not a criticism of Kellen Moore as a coach, as Vic Fangio as a coordinator, even Nick Sirianni as a head coach. I don't. This setup is, look, if he's the head coach, he's got to be the head coach. He's got to have autonomy over the offense. Yeah. Whether he's going to let Kellen, but if something goes wrong and he doesn't like, he's got to be able to say, I got to do this. And I'm not sure he has that autonomy. Yeah. And that, to me, is a very difficult tightrope to traverse.
Which would essentially mean there's almost it's like a 3-headed head coach. I mean, you have Nick, who's the vibes coordinator, I guess. Then the Kellen, who controls the offense, and Vic, who controls the defense. You're right, John. It is an interesting setup.
Yeah, and we'll see. As long as they're winning, it'll be great. But if
everything's great.
Bad, there's going to be a lot of intrigue and a lot of so-and-so said to so-and-so that,
that one of the truest sports isms of all time. Winning cures everything. It does. Yeah. Nobody complains if you're winning. So you're right there. And that's because Les Bowen's a winner. At Les Bowen, read him at PHLY. Always good to catch up with you, Les. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah. Les, thanks for being on, man. We appreciate it. We'll be reading your work on PHLY. Thanks, brother.
All right.
There's Les Bowen joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Les Bowen. He gave us a couple extra minutes, so we appreciate that from Les. Had a hard out at 45, and he gave us the extra 5 minutes to talk about the article. I thought he brought some good insights there. Johnny Mac will take our final commercial time out. Still big viewership on the show. We appreciate all you guys watching. Make sure you smash that like button. Stay tuned. Birds 365 will be right back with a final preview of what the Eagles are doing today in their joint practice down at Foxborough. Stay tuned.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Tuesday's edition of Birds 365, August 13th here. A good show today. Thank you to Bill Colarulo and Les Bowen, who both joined us today. I thought they both brought great insight to the show. So those interviews will be posted up on the channel later today. So hope all you guys are tuned into the channel and catching up on any content you guys missed. Johnny Mac, 7 minutes left to go on the show today. Birds about to take the field with New England here in a little bit. Like I said, we'll probably do a recap. But what's your final thoughts here, last 7 minutes of the show, of what to look for today, what to learn from the practice today? Who's got the most to look forward to today? If it's a position group, a player, I don't know if they have a good receiver that Quinyon will have to go against. Like what's the best?
No, I think, defensively, I think there's more of an upside to this practice because I think you can generate some confidence against a team that doesn't have the best talent, but they're all NFL players. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I think it's an opportunity to gain some confidence where I think it more representative of Eagles offense versus Pat's defense. I think that's a much more at least competent unit from New England's perspective. So maybe it's a little bit of a more difficult test for them. So, I wouldn't be, panicking if you hear some struggling from the offense, and I wouldn't get too excited if you hear, hey, the defense is playing pretty well, because you have to factor in the opposition. But it's always good to go against a different team and see different looks, different players, because you get used to the guys you're practicing against. And so that part of it's helpful. And then talking about Jim Johnson and Mark Simino, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, right. Because it shows you that, Vic might have cachet, but that doesn't mean he's always right.
Yeah, nobody's a human being.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to push back if you see something that doesn't look right. And that's me with Quinyon. I'm like, I don't agree with it. And we'll see as things progress during the summer. Hopefully Cooper DeJean is back this weekend. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, the best part is the fact that you're getting to test yourself against somebody else. And that'll be the first team, because defense was out there for a little bit because Vic wanted them out there. Offense wasn't out there at all. They'll get a lot of work today against the Patriots first teamers.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mack. I'm excited to hear about, I don't know who is the number one receiver in New England. I mean, is Quinyon going to have anybody to go up against that are even compared to AJ?
I mean, if you, they have Kendrick Bourne, they have Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, KJ Osborne, Taquan Thornton, who can run. So Jalen Reagor, Keyshawn Booty. So no, there are no Justin Jefferson's out there today.
Nothing out there like that, but should be good to at least get him on the practice field with somebody. What type of intent? That's why I wish there was 2 days, John, because I feel like that second day is where the tensions brew a little bit in that first day, and then you start to see
They only want, like I said, they only have 1 day with Indianapolis, and that was the biggest fight, and I can remember.
Okay, so maybe we'll get some action there.
Kelsey taking the beeline to Zaire Franklin, who was bullying.
CJ Gardner-Johnson's in pads today, you can guarantee there will be some sort of scuffle out there, but I don't think he is, right?
I don't know. He's not that hurt, but he didn't practice on
Sunday.
So I doubt. Well, I'll get the practice injury list. Pretty soon after practice starts.
10:02, you'll get it.
No, it practice doesn't start till 10:30, so it's not a 10:02 situation. But it'll be it won't be before we sign off in 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, like it never is. So we always end the show, and there's always something that's been going on for 4 years. Even Jody Mack's days, the show would end, and we would learn something about the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's always unfortunate, but good stuff today, Johnny Mack. Maybe we'll do, like I said, I know you're not going to have that much intel, but I still would like to do something later on today after the practice, give a 10, 15-minute update, just tell the people what happened, even if it's hearsay or even if it's through the eyes of other reporters. Is Ed Kratz going to be down there today, or is he not going?
No, Ed is not going, but there's plenty of people up there.
Who is going? Is our guy BLG going?
Yeah, Brandon's going. BLG is going. Checo's going. The choir guys are going because they make it easy for them.
Yeah.
So they'll all be up there. Olivia, not all guys, but she'll be up there. I think Brookie will be up there from NJ.com. But a lot of guys aren't going. I think Jimmy's up there, Jimmy Kempsky. So there's plenty of people up there.
Prediction on who makes a play in practice today. My prediction is Bryce Huff, Johnny Mack.
Well, a lot of people are going to make plays, but AJ's going to make a play. Devontae's going to make a play.
Oh, that's a cop-out, John. That's a cop-out.
That's a guarantee. Well, that's what I mean. Right? Everybody makes. If you're talking about splash play, I'll go interception by Reed Blankenship.
Oh, all right. Now that one I will take. That's a good, hopeful projection there. So let's see what they do. Johnny Mack, good show today, man. I thought our guests were great today. Good stuff. We will talk to you later on today on Football 24/7, and then I think we're 8 to 10 all week this week, right, Johnny Mack? The first time in a little bit.
Yeah, the Eagles won't be back until Saturday. The game is obviously on Thursday, so they'll have a walkthrough tomorrow. Game is on Thursday. Players' day off Friday. Back on the practice field Saturday.
Good stuff, Johnny Mack. We will catch you later on today and then again in the morning, brother. So good show today. We'll talk to you soon. All right, man.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Hit that like button on your way out. Appreciate you all. Catch you tomorrow on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.